Hello, I'm AP Bastian, and today we're going to be tapping into the healing power of art to help us navigate through life's transitions. We are going to spend some time together with an arts and crafts project, which I call the spiral of transformation. But before we get started, let's get your tools assembled. You're going to need some coloring pencils or crayons or watercolor, whatever you like to color with. You're going to need some cardboard boxes. This is a good size, or you can also get a little bit bigger size like that. You're going to need a glue stick, pair of scissors, some toothpicks or push pins, and the printout of the spiral that was in the latest issue of Metamorphosis. You're going to need that as well as the printed elements, which are going to be your caterpillar, your chrysalis, and your butterfly. So make sure you get those things ready and assembled. And really the intent of today's practice is to connect with our inner child, to connect with our life's transitions in a way that is more embodied and present in joy and exploration instead of being in the head, in the mind, overthinking everything, freaking out because we can't quite understand what is happening to us as we transform. So you've been following me along for a while, then you know that I've been studying the process of metamorphosis in butterflies for a few years now. And what I've discovered is that the 4 stages of metamorphosis mirrors the stages of personal transformation in humans. So, and I've titled these stages. The first stage is the growth stage. The second stage is the chrysalis phase. The third stage is the rebirth period. And the fourth stage is the embodiment phase. Now, I'm going to get a little bit into more of these phases and tell you some of the themes around them when we start with our practice in a bit. But I just wanted to give you a brief introduction. If this is your first time hearing about these concepts, then I recommend that you take my quiz. It's a 10-question, 60-second quiz that will basically lead you to discover which stage of your personal transformation you're in. And so, knowing that, when you have your spiral of transformation, and I'm going to finish color this in with you all today, and I already started the process, otherwise we would have a 2-hour recording. But once you have your spiral together and you know the stages and you can pinpoint, okay, today I feel like I am just a mess in stage 2, dissolving in the chrysalis. And we're going to make it so that you can pinpoint this and move these elements around on your spiral of transformation. Now, if you've been through a time of transition and change, then you understand how disorienting it can be. It's like all of a sudden, one day we are into, butterflies and tattoos, and the next day we're into death metal. Like our tastes are changing, our interests are changing. So much so that this is starting to manifest in our physical reality. So you may move to a different country, a different location. You may leave a relationship. You may pick up habits or hobbies that you've never had before. You can change your diet. And I can go so much into like my own story and my own experiences that I've had in navigating personal transformation, but I want you to think about what does that mean and look like for you. But again, enough thinking. Let's really get into the fun stuff and play together today. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is when you have your spiral printed out. Now, I had to draw mine, which took a very long time, because I am moving in a couple of weeks and I don't have a printer. So hopefully you can just print yours out on a page. It will look somewhat like this. There's 2 options. There's one with the numbers, if you're already kind of familiar with the stages, or there's one where each stage is named on the spiral. So whichever one you pick is up to you. So print that out. And then the next step would be to print out the three, what I call the three elements, which are going to be your caterpillar, your chrysalis, how cute that is, and your butterfly. And once you have those printed out, you will color them in. However you want to color them, you'll see mine have already been colored. And then you want to also color in your spiral. So I'm going to finish color mine in now, but I got really colorful and playful with it. I did some shading. I used a variety of colors. And again, the purpose really is for us to enjoy this process and lose ourselves in creativity. Because did you know that art, engaging in creative practices, enhances our brain function? It actually helps us explore who we are, find pleasure within our own way of expression, and have a sense of self-awareness. So it's really powerful. And I have a picture here of one of my favorite artists, Frida Kahlo. She is such a muse. And the thing that I love about Frida is that she actually suffered a lot of pain in her life. She went through a lot of painful situations, not only in her health. She was in a trolley accident when she was very young in Mexico City, but also in her personal relationships. If you know anything about her relationship with Diego Rivera, who was a muralist artist, then you know it was very tumultuous. And what she was able to do so beautifully was really express the pain and her own cycles of transformation through her art. This is one of her self-portraits. Occasionally, she would do self-portraits. And if you explore and go down the rabbit hole of Frida Kahlo's self-portraits, you will see different themes emerge. This one in particular, you know, she has kind of like a necklace of thorns around her neck. And she also has a headdress, and there's some butterflies there. So it talks a lot about the pain, yes, but also the beauty of transformation that I imagine was a recurring theme in her life at that time. So we are not, don't worry, we're not going to be painting self-portraits yet. Maybe that's for a future practice for us. Today, let's just focus on our spiral of transformation. So let's start by coloring. And I have my color pencils here. And I'm just gonna finish my spiral. So let me talk to you a little bit about the stages of metamorphosis. So I already mentioned there are 4 stages. And the first stage is a growth stage. And that's when we are the hungry caterpillar. Now, caterpillars eat a lot. In a matter of 3 to 5 weeks, it's an insane figure. It's like if you imagine an 8-pound baby becoming a 28,000-pound baby, that's the insane level of rapid growth that a caterpillar experiences. So in this stage of transformation, we are really, really hungry, but we're not hungry for food. We're hungry for what nourishes us, for our interests. We're hungry to explore our passions. We're hungry to have different experiences. We're hungry for things that make us feel alive, that feed that inner spark within us, that feed our passion, our fire, our inner flame. And this is also a stage where we are really focused on our own well-being. We're really focused on what nourishes us, on what helps us grow as individuals. So you might all of a sudden be interested in, you know, meditation practices, in self-development, reading a lot of books, exploring community rituals in your area, and really diving deeper into the question of who am I? And perhaps it's been a while since you thought about that. Perhaps, you know, you've been so consumed with everyday life, the demands, that life brings each of us, that you haven't taken a moment to ask, who am I really? And at the same time, while we are growing, because we're asking this question of who am I, we are also starting to shed everything that we are not. And I just got chills because I think that's so beautiful that as we grow, we simultaneously have to shed. And so it's this beautiful dance of growing and shedding that you can see in this stage of transformation. And this shedding, of course, is of conditioning, masked personas, versions of you that you were thought you had to be, beliefs that were created because of where you are from, how you were raised, the environment you were raised in. And we all have them. We all have these fabrications in some way, these personas. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it gets to a point in our evolution where if we want to continue growing, the only way to do so is to begin to shed these things. So that's the growth stage in a nutshell, the first stage of personal transformation. And then we move on to the chrysalis phase. And again, if you follow me on social media at AP Bastion, you can find me on there. I love talking about the chrysalis phase because the chrysalis phase is really, when we think about transformation, going through enormous change, likely we think of the chrysalis phase because that's really, in my opinion, the most uncomfortable phase to be in of transformation. The caterpillar enters the chrysalis and it will dissolve. It turns to goo, literally. That's what happens. And can you imagine how uncomfortable it is when you've been embodying one shape, one way of being for most of your life, and suddenly all of that starts to dissolve and dissipate? And not only that, but you are enclosed in darkness. And for most of us, once we exit the womb, we are not comfortable in darkness any longer. It becomes a really difficult space to be in because we can't see. And if we lived our lives depending on what we can see, and suddenly that's gone, and we have then to exercise faith and trust and believing in what we can't see, that in itself is a powerful and difficult practice. And so the chrysalis phase is really the part of transformation where we feel this dissolution of everything we've been up to this point. And a lot of times this will start to manifest in your life as well, externally. For me, when I've been in this stage, I left a job. And not only that, but I left the country I was living in, a country that I loved so deeply, Mexico. And it was amazing because I could see my life falling away. And it wasn't falling apart because it really was allowing me to be here, sitting with you now, doing this creative practice. It was falling away so that this could fall into place. But at the time, it was very, very difficult. It was very difficult to see the things that I love be removed from my life to some extent, feel that I had outgrown all these versions of my life, outgrown that career, outgrown even that role of myself that I had created, and that I was ready to step into something new. But you can't have the new without endings. You just can't. They go hand in hand. And the chrysalis phase really teaches us that in order for you to get this new beginning that you're really wanting, that you're envisioning, in order for you to step into this new version of you that you have in your mind, in order for you to fully step into your destiny and claim your visions and your desires and your dreams, you have to let go of everything and anything that is no longer for you. And that's difficult. That requires trust. And above all, that requires just being with the not knowing what's going to replace this thing that you love that you're having to leave behind, but trusting that it's going to be so much better than what you're leaving. So chrysalis phase is not for the faint-hearted, and we all go through it. We all go through it in different levels and different ways through our lives. And that's something else to mention. Transformation is a spiral. It is not a linear path. We are forever navigating the spirals of change and transformation. If you find yourself in one stage, in one moment of your life, soon enough, the spiral is going to move and you're going to shift into another stage. So you're never going to be in one stage forever. That's not how change works, right? Everything is forever moving along, shifting and changing, as are we, as are the stages that we're going through. So, and that's something really helpful to keep in mind too, when you are dissolving in the chrysalis and having to trust the process, trust the method of metamorphosis, I like to say, is having trust that it will change. You are not going to be the caterpillar turning to goo forever. It's impossible. That's just not how transformation works. And then finally, we have the third stage, the rebirth period. Now, when we think of transformation, I think this image comes up a lot too, is of the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. After dissolving into goo, being a caterpillar, now it's a completely new being. It's a completely new forms, new parts, new abilities. I can nerd out for a long time on some of the technicalities here. But the rebirth period is really that stage where you emerge out of the chrysalis as a new being. But you're not going to fly yet. That's for stage 4. In stage 3, as we emerge in this new form, this is really a moment of integrating into our lives. Wow, what the was that? What was that journey I just went through? I have changed so much. I'm a completely different person than I was when I first started on this journey. Let me take a moment to just reflect on that. Really let the lessons, what I've learned, settle and sink in. And also playing around with, who am I now? What are these parts that I have? Maybe we're not ready to use them yet, but just being curious about, wow, what are these new abilities that I have, these new talents, these new gifts? Now, this can be the moment where all of a sudden you're writing poetry, or you are singing, or you buy yourself a drum and you start drumming out in nature. And I'm smiling because some of these are real life examples of stages of my own evolution that I went through. And it's really important in this phase for you to just give yourself a lot of space to just be in this triumphant rebirth that you've just experienced, and enjoy the heck out of it. This stage 2 is really connected to the element of air. And so the element of air is a lot about our ideas and also our vision. So it's this higher vision. It's this moment of really envisioning our dreams. Now that we have transformed, now that we have changed, what do we want for ourselves? What do we want in our lives? Really, as who we truly are, right? We had to let so much go in order to get to this point, and we owe it to ourselves to really spend time now daydreaming, envisioning. It's a period where there's a lot of hope, a lot of excitement for what's ahead, and also just a lot of space. There's a sense of spaciousness. We are no longer enclosed in the chrysalis. We are now out of the chrysalis. And we can see that we are different. So rebirth period is really, really powerful. That's stage 3. And then comes stage 4, the embodiment era. And the embodiment era is when we take that leap, as opposed to the rebirth period where we're still hanging outside of the chrysalis, waiting for the right time. In the rebirth period, this is the stage where the butterfly, it needs to wait. It can't just exit the chrysalis and start flying off. There's a period where it will do 2 things. One of them is it will physically weave together and connect what is called a proboscis, which is kind of like a tongue-like feature, which it will use to suck the nectar out of the flowers. So it has to weave, which I love that it does this because it speaks so much to this aspect of integration, bringing together. It has to bring its proboscis together so that it can use it in the next phase. And it has to pump the blood to its wings, because when it exits the chrysalis, the wings are kind of crumpled up. So it has to push the blood to the wings in order for them to spread and really take the form. And then stage 4 is when, with its wings spread and ready, with the proboscis woven together and ready also for it to feed, to collect nourishment, then it will leap. It will take its first flight. The embodiment era is the quintessential leap of faith. And it's where, we spend all that time envisioning, thinking of our dreams, what it is that I aspire, what it is that I want to create in my life. I spend all that time doing that in the rebirth period. And now in the embodiment era, we take action. So if my dream was, I want to write a book, great. In the embodiment era, we go, okay, what is the process? How do I create a table of contents? What is self-publishing like? What is reaching out to publishers like? What are the concrete steps that I need to take in the physical world in order to bring this vision into reality? And the embodiment era is really characterized by the energy of the element of fire. So it's this fire within us, this hunger, this passion that's really driving us. And it's a very energetic time as well, because, we have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing our visions into reality. There are things that we have to do in order to embody who we are here to be. The butterfly doesn't just get wings and then fly around doing whatever it wants. It has to go drink from the flowers, and it has to go lay its eggs as well. And so this is really a time where we are focused on the actions. Who do we need to be and what do we need to do to live the lives of our dreams? And I've asked myself this question many times along my own phases of metamorphosis and evolution. And I think it's a really, really powerful question to sit with. Who do I need to be? What do I need to do in order to live the life of my dreams? And this can touch in so many different areas of your life. The embodiment era is really, really powerful. It's really that phase of you're fired up, you're really driven and alight, you're ignited by your passions, your desires. It's a very driven and determined moment. Now, the caution, the warning of that is you have to also remember that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And along this phase of embodying, of taking action, we also need to take moments of pause, give ourselves rest, and balance the doing with the being, because we're not one thing all of the time, right? We need to balance everything that we are living through with doing and being, equal measures of both. Now, you might need a little bit longer to finish coloring in your spiral, and that's okay. Feel free to pause me I will be over here ready to welcome you and talk to you again whenever you're back. But I'm going to move on because I really want to explain to you what you do once you have your spiral created. Ah, beautiful. So once you have your spiral of transformation, and now that you know the 4 stages, and so here we go again with the caterpillar, so cute, the chrysalis, and the butterfly. Really, the purpose of having these elements on your spiral, so your spiral is going to serve like a kind of map, a transformation map to you. And you can keep that anywhere that's visible in your house, in your environment. And as you journey through your own cycles of evolution and change, you can ask yourself, which stage of transition am I in right now? You know, am I the caterpillar in the growth stage? Am I just really focused on my own growth and really asking and exploring this question of who am I now, deeper and deeper? Am I dissolving in the chrysalis and letting go of old ways of being and just navigating the unknown and simmering in the darkness of the unknown? Maybe not many things are making sense in my life right now. And how can I trust that that's okay? Am I in the stage, in the chrysalis phase? Or maybe you are in the rebirth period. You've just exited the chrysalis. And I just have a butterfly for both the rebirth period and the embodiment era. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's just about knowing like the difference between rebirth period and embodiment era, which is mostly around the energy. In the rebirth period, we're still envisioning, we're not taking action quite yet. Once we move into the embodiment era is where we start taking action and flying off into destiny. So the rebirth period or for the embodiment era. And so you can look at it and you can place this on your own spiral. And it can serve as a reminder, and maybe in a few weeks, in a few months, maybe even in a year, who knows how often these cycles last for you, you can say, okay, I am no longer in my embodiment phase. I feel like I am right now back to my caterpillar phase. I'm really in the growth stage of my metamorphosis now. And you can have this visual to play around with and kind of guide you through all these cycles and transitions. And most of all, to serve as a reminder that even though it may feel like nothing makes sense right now, something does, right? If I can pinpoint myself in this spiral, if I can know that I'm just going through my growth stage right now, then I can have self-compassion for myself. I can have understanding for a little bit of this chaotic process of transformation. That's really my goal and my intention with this practice, is to have a visual that helps us orient ourselves and make sense of the mess of metamorphosis. Now, let's get your cardboard box. So I have, this was like a little flap one that would work really well. I also had cut out a bigger one, and this was nice, and I cut out in a shape like this. So this was the bottom of the box, and I cut this out like in a V sort of shape, and this is the back of it. I just kind of folded it in so it can give some support. So then I can glue my spiral to the front of this, and it will stand up. It will stand up like that. Let me see if I can show it to you there. It can stand up like that. I want to keep my spiral at my altar so I can have a visual reminder. And just so I can play with it too, you know, maybe one day I'm like, I really feel like I'm in the chrysalis right now, I'm having a tough time, and I can put that there. And so let me show you then this next phase. So cut your cardboard box into whatever shape will be conducive to you. Now, if you don't want to keep it in a cardboard box and you just want to color it, that's okay. You know, there's no rules. This is really for your inner child, for whatever you feel like doing and exploring. Because I want to keep my at my altar, and I also want to play around with placing these different elements wherever I want them to be, I'm going to glue my spiral on cardboard now. And that's going to allow me with a toothpick to then place my elements on the spiral so that I don't have to glue them and I can reuse it. And it's really fun to do actually, like with a toothpick. Or you can also use push pins, but this is the idea that you can then go and keep your element on your spiral and be able to always be moving your elements around the spiral no matter what, because you're not gluing them or attaching them permanently. So because I'm going to be a nomad for a little bit of time, I'm going to use this kind of cardboard that's flat and can easily pack into my suitcase. And now my spiral is fully colored in, looks beautiful. I killed a fly on this the other day. I'm really glad you can't see the fly blood on it. Only I know that. Odd fact. And now grab your glue and spread it on the back of your spiral like so. And it's not to be perfect. Again, perfection is just a thief of joy, in my personal opinion. You know, messy with it, have fun, get dirty. Allow yourself to just play and have some pleasure in life, you know, it's so important. Okay, once you have that, I'm gonna use undecided. I'm gonna use this part of my box. It fits in perfectly. Okay, glue that down. Beautiful. And there we go. Wow, it really does fit perfectly. Glue that down. And then we can experiment once you have that on there. This kind of works too, because I could even just leave this flat, like tuck it behind something, and it would just stand up on my altar, which is perfect. And then I can play around with now placing my elements. So let me see. When I took my own quiz that I created, it told me I'm in the embodiment era, and I very much am. So I am the butterfly. I have exited the chrysalis, thankfully, and I have also am ready to flap my wings. In fact, me being here with you today is me flapping my wings, embodying my higher purpose as a creatrix, bringing these kinds of magic to you. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and you're enjoying this practice and you want to keep up with me, it's really helpful, and I would appreciate it a lot if you give it a thumbs up or you share with your friends, your family, and subscribe to my newsletter, Metamorphosine. Now, this is the moment, you guys. This is the moment where I see if my vision really worked. Oh, yay! Yes! So there you go. You can see I'm the butterfly in stage 4 of my metamorphosis. Now, something too that you can do, which I didn't do, but I guess I can do it now, is I can cut this toothpick so that it's not super long, and that looks more pleasant. And maybe one day I'll think to myself, you know, I am really going through a period of a lot of personal growth and curiosity about different interests of mine. And that will mean I'm in the growth stage in the hungry caterpillar. You can see that. So isn't that fun? So you can have all your stages and you can track whichever stage you're in. And let's do one more for the chrysalis. I'm just gonna cut this now. It's very dramatic with a pair of scissors, but it works just as fine with your fingers. I can say I'm in the chrysalis phase. Beautiful. And let's get the butterfly back on there as well. And so I ask you, which stage of your own personal transformation are you? Where in the mess of metamorphosis are you right now? I hope you really take this moment to think about that and to visualize your very own spiral of transformation. So when we have all three elements on there, it will look like that. And you're welcome to keep coming back to the spiral anytime that you feel something is shifting within me. Where am I transitioning into a different stage of metamorphosis? Again, this is a journey. It is a spiral. You're never going to be in one stage. And after you go through your embodiment phase, it doesn't end there. We're continuously evolving. We're always going to be changing. That's part of being human. We are in a constant state of change. That is a truth. So even after your embodiment, maybe it starts up again at one, or maybe you go to the chrysalis phase and it can jump around as well. I am giving these in order just for our own kind of capacity and ability to understand and visualize it. But truly, the spiral transformation, there's always going to be unknown. There's always going to be a mystery. There's a reason why, we know about 1,000th of what actually happens in metamorphosis, because a big part of it is enclosed in the chrysalis and we can't see it. So there's always going to be this air of mystery around transformation. There's always going to be unknown. That's a big, big, big theme in transformation. And that's helping us to also just trust the process, trust the mess of metamorphosis. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope you enjoyed this practice and creating your very own spiral of transformation, and I will see you next time.